Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. My name's Jacqueline O'Monier. I'm one of the Education and Training Officers from Under One Roof, and we're delighted to be here today with our partners from Aberdeenshire Council. We've got Ailey here with us today from the council. We're just getting started, so I'll just go through a wee bit of housekeeping, and we've got a number of people that are registered today, so just to give people time to log on to their devices and just join us. But thank you for everybody who's here on time. I really appreciate it. So we're going to be here for about an hour today. We're going to be discussing damp and mold and what we can offer you as help and support as landlords as we navigate our way through another or yet another legislative update that's on the horizon. We're remote today. There's no fire alarms or anything like that planned. You are all hopefully familiar with Teams. So depending on the device that you're using today, you'll either have controls on the top of your screen or along the side. Rebecca, our lovely comms officer, is here today to support the webinar. Rebecca will put links to pages on our website from Under One Roof, as well as any other links that are pertinent to our discussions today in the chat box. You guys can use that for any commentary that you want to that you want to kind of submit throughout the presentation. And we've got our Q&A box as well. So at the end of the presentation, we'll come back over into the group area, and we will go through your questions. So please put any questions that you do have as we go through the presentation, or at the end in the Q&A box. What else have I got to tell you today? Importantly, we're recording this session, so don't worry too much about frantically taking down notes and trying to keep pace with everything. You will get a copy of the recording emailed to you after the event, along with a copy of the slide deck that I'm going to go through today, and a link to sign up to our newsletter. So yeah, have a look at that when it comes through. But I think that is probably me on the kind of welcome and introduction. So let me just share my screen and go into the presentation. And yes, here we are. Okay, so if you are not familiar with who we are at Under One Roof, we're Scotland's only charity that provides free impartial information on repairs, maintenance and retrofit for tenement flat owner-occupiers, landlords and housing professionals in Scotland. We're funded by the Scottish Government and 28 out of the 32 local authorities across Scotland, including Aberdeenshire, and we're very grateful for that. It allows us to do all of our events, whether that's online or in person. It allows us to provide training to landlords and owners and people that work across the sector, whether that's in local authorities, private factors, housing associations, and we work with a lot of extended professionals in the sector, including solicitors, architects, surveyors, etc. We also help tenants as well when they get in contact with us. So if you're not familiar with us, I really would urge you to have a look at our website and yeah, just see what's there and see how we can help you. But what we're doing today is we're talking about damp and mold. And as with anything in life, it's always good to start at the beginning. A lot of people are confused. What actually is damp and what does it mean and what really is mold? So if we take it right back and we start to think about damp, one of the main types of damp that you can have in a property is rising damp, which is the upward movement of moisture from the ground into the lower section of a building's walls. So if you're here today and you own a ground floor property, it might be that you've got problems with damp where porous bricks and mortar are drawing up groundwater. It might be that there's a damp proof course in the basement of your building, and that's defective, which is allowing water in. And it might also be that you've got salt contamination on your walls, which is caused by the groundwater that draws up through porous bricks and mortar. The salt within that travels up the walls and it leaves crystallized marks after the water evaporates. It's not uncommon in ground floor flats to see salt marks on walls, and generally it does indicate that there are some other kind of issues going on below ground level that need to be dealt with, and that can cause rising damp. Our other type of damp that we have in Scotland is penetrating damp, which is when water enters the property from the outside. Your most kind of common causes of penetrating damp are things like roof and gutter issues. So that might be dependent on the type of roof that you've got, whether it's a flat roof, it's a pitched roof with tiles, slates, whatever it may be. It could be that you've that there's a missing or a slipped slate, or there's issues with your the lead work on your roof. Maybe your flat roof has come to the end of its life and it's started to bow. There's water pooling on it, which can obviously cause water to enter through and into the building. Gutter issues, we'll come on to talk about that in a wee minute. I've got some photographic examples so we can see where gutters cause people problems. Cracked masonry is another area that can cause penetrating damp to occur in your property, particularly when you haven't or as an owner, you're just not aware of the condition of the stonework in your building. You have cracks there. When it's raining, the stone gets wet and the water just comes through and starts to cause some real problems. Cracks or just defects in windows and door surrounds can be an entry point for water that can start to cause damp. And obviously, if you've got any blocked drains or leaking drains, downpipes, externally or internally, then yeah, that can cause you issues with penetrating damp. Mould is a type of fungus that grows on surfaces in damp and humid conditions. We hear a lot in the news. It's been so topical for a number of years, but particularly in the last kind of 6 to 12 months, where there's been lots of press activity across Scotland, towns, cities, smaller areas, whatever it may be, about people who are having issues with black mould in their properties. So typical causes of that is obviously excess water that's leaking, that's coming from leaking roofs, plumbing leaks, or water ingress that's coming into the property. It's got nowhere to go. It's causing damp, it's penetrating damp, and that is then turning into condensation in areas, and it's creating black mould. Poor ventilation prevents moisture from escaping in a property. It increases humidity, and that's a real kind of breeding ground for mould to start growing. Condensation occurs on cold surfaces. We'll come on to talk about condensation, but I think it's just important that we recognise that we've got humid air in a property and we've not got anywhere for that to go. Obviously, when it does hit a cold surface, whether that's an external wall or a window or both, condensation and water droplets are going to occur. If they're not, dried off, then you're going to start to get mould growth in those areas. And obviously, our rising and penetrating damp can cause mould to grow as well. So I just thought it would be useful to have a couple of photographic examples. Just, I'm aware as landlords, obviously you're not all going to be living in the buildings where you own properties, you might have a letting agent who looks after your property or your portfolio. So you're not there on a regular basis. But I really would encourage you, and as we go through the presentation, you'll see that as well, that I encourage you to visit your properties. And it's a good idea to start off with what's happening externally. Have a look at the building from the opposite side of the road, and have a look up at the gutters and see what's happening. We can see in the example here that we've got some foliage that's grown out of the gutters. We can see that there's that the stone is really wet, and it's obvious that there's some kind of water leak coming from the gutters that's causing the foliage to grow and the stone to get wet. That will undoubtedly be causing issues internally. You can also see that there's some cracked masonry as well. So have a look up at your building, see what's happening. Do you see something like this? Do you see something like this? Or do you regularly look out, whether it's in your own property or, when you're at work, whatever it may be, and you look out onto a tenement building, and you see this? That is undoubtedly going to cause an issue in that building, and the gutters do need to be cleaned on a regular basis. We would always recommend that they're done annually under one roof. In certain cases, it might be that they're done twice a year, but we have had examples from owners who are doing it on a quarterly basis just because of the location of their building in a leafy area, and they have regular issues with leaves and blocking the gutters, and foliage growth. Downpipes are another wise area for you to have a look at and check over. And we can see from the example on the left that the pipe is obviously leaking. It's discoloured and rusted, and the stonework is discoloured as well. Again, we can see on the right that we've got a kind of green moss or algae that's growing on the stonework, as well as seeing that we've got plant growth from the gutters. We can see, that there's issues there with water, rainwater is coming down the drain pipe, and leaking out and causing issues to the building. So have a wee look and see what's happening in your building next time you're round, or next time you're driving past, if it's somewhere that's local to you, just to get an idea of the condition, what's potentially going on, and how you can then start the process of speaking to the other owners and trying to figure out resolution. So why is it important for you as a landlord, as a property owner, to maintain and look after your building? We speak about this continually at Under One Roof when we're talking to people about tenement management and maintenance. We need owners, landlords, to know specifically what your responsibilities are. Obviously, as a landlord, you've got a whole host of regulatory regulations, legislation and obligations that you have to comply with. But don't forget that out with you being a landlord, you're also an owner within a building, and you didn't just buy your flat, you also bought a share of the common areas, and you are responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance of those areas along with the other co-owners in the building. We hear a lot at Under One Roof through our inquiry service that I'll come on to talk to you about later on, about difficulties that owners have contacting landlords, getting landlords to engage in the common repairs process, or just even getting them to engage in basic dialogue about the condition of the building, and issues that may be there. So I really would urge everybody that's here today to be aware of what your responsibilities are. If you don't already have a copy of the title deeds for your building, or for your property, sorry, then I would recommend that you go on to Registers of Scotland and you pay the £3.60 fee, and you download a copy of your title deed so you can check what your responsibilities are on an individual basis and in common with the other owners in your building. You need to be aware of the condition of the building. It's not enough just to say, look, I'm buying something for investment purposes, or I'm adding to the portfolio, or, I've accidentally become a landlord. I just need to get somebody in, get the money, the rent money coming in, pay the mortgage, and that's it. We need you to be aware of the condition of the building that your property is in. How is that going to affect tenants' ability to have quiet enjoyment of the property and to create a home there? You need to know what's happening. We want you to reduce the need for constant reactive repairs and avoiding high unexpected bills. We know a lot from the feedback that we get from owners and landlords across Scotland. It's like, oh, I've got this flat. It's just constant money after money after money after money. There's no kind of planned maintenance schedule, structure, strategy to any of this. It's just that someday in touch again. We paid X amount of money for something to be done 18 months, 2 years ago, and now they're asking for money again. I'm just sick of this. We need to move away from that structure into something that's a bit more planned and managed. We want you to have adequate building insurance. Obviously, as a landlord, you're going to have insurances in place, but make sure that you know per the title deeds the type of building insurance policy that you need to have. Could be that your deeds stipulate that you've got to have an individual building insurance policy, or they could stipulate that you need a common or a block policy, which is one policy that all of the owners will pay a share into. You may have a property factor for your building who arranges property insurance, but make sure you understand, and you understand the type of insurance that you have to have, and that you have got that in place. It is a legal requirement in Scotland to have a building insurance policy, particularly if you've got a mortgage on the property. It'll be a condition of the mortgage agreement. And also within tenement law, you can ask other owners in your building to provide you with a copy of their insurance documents so that you know that your fellow co-owners are insured. As we've seen across the news in the last 6 months in Scotland, there have been multiple issues with fires, with building collapses, and storm damage, where owners have had issues not only with being displaced from their homes, where their tenants have been displaced, but also that there's not enough insurance cover in place to cover the reinstatement works. So have a think about the insurance cover that you've got. And we want you to have regular communication with owners. As I said at the beginning, we know that feedback that we get is that landlords can be difficult to get in contact with. Conversely, we've got a lot of proactive landlords that use our service on a regular basis, and they have difficulties with owners. So I know it's not a two-way street. I know that it is a two-way street, and I'm not here to kind of bash one group, and say like you guys aren't doing great. I just think that we, as a collective, we need to be aware of what our responsibilities are within ownership, as well as our responsibilities and legal obligations as a landlord, and make sure that that we're visible in some way, whether that's just with a phone number, an email address, or you're physically there at a meeting, and that you're in regular communication with the owners in the building. So you will have heard, hopefully, through the press, and just maybe if you're a member of SAL or another membership organisation, about the Housing Scotland Bill. It was approved by the Scottish Government on the 30th of September and gained royal assent at the beginning of November this year. So we now have the Housing Scotland Act 2025. As the bill was going through Parliament and the different stages of approval, damp and mould were highlighted within the context of the bill under the tolerable standard. The tolerable standard forms part of the overall repairing standard for Scotland. The tolerable standard, that's a real mouthful, came from the Housing Scotland Act 1987. and that sets out the tolerable standard, sets out the minimum standards that a property needs to meet in Scotland to be considered fit for human habitation. So what did it say in the now 2025 Act about damp and mould? The section is literally as it is on screen. Any such guidance issued by the Scottish ministers may further specify the circumstances in which a house is to be considered to be substantially free from rising or penetrating damp under subsection 1B. So if we think about that in relation to the tolerable standard and just take you through what the tolerable standard actually contains. So for your property to be considered fit for human habitation and to meet the tolerable standard, it has to be structurally stable. It has to be free from rising or penetrating damp. It has to have natural lighting, ventilation and heating, satisfactory thermal insulation, adequate hot and cold sink facilities, adequate supply of wholesome water, sanitary conveniences within the house, satisfactory facilities for the preparation and cooking of food, effective systems for drainage and disposal of wastewater, adequate access to all external doors and outbuildings, and an adequate and safe electrical installation. So if we think about that in the context of the updated 2025 Act and where we're going with that, the Scottish Government will be outlining what their plans are within the tolerable standard for additional regulation upon landlords on how they have to deal with damp and mould in a property and what the timeframes are for that and how we can start to move forward with updating our housing stock in Scotland. How are they going to do all of that? Well, they're going to do that through the vehicle of AWAB's law. AWAB's law came into effect in England following the death of a toddler in 2020. He and his family lived in a social housing property that had issues with damp and black mould that caused him to develop severe health issues as a result of living in those circumstances, and he tragically didn't recover from it and lost his life. So at Westminster, they took on AWAB's law and brought that into being, and that is what the Scottish Government is looking to do potentially from March next year. There's no update from them at this time as to the definite date, and there's certainly no update that that they may not meet this date. The intention is, following the bill receiving royal assent in November and becoming an act in November, that from March next year the principles of AWAB's law will come into the private rented sector as well as the social housing sector in Scotland. So what will that mean for you as a landlord? It will mean that you'll have a legal obligation to investigate and resolve complaints about damp and mould, and it means that you'll have strict timeframes to comply with in the repairs process. If we look at AWAB's law as it stands at the moment for England, which you can go online and have a look at that, you'll see that there are different categories of repairing issues. It sets out what's classed as an emergency that has to be attended to by a contractor within 24 hours. It sets out, what is I'm trying to think of what the right word, and I apologise, my brain's just freezed up. It sets out other types of issues that are not classed as an emergency, but absolutely need to be dealt with when somebody is reporting an issue with damp and mould, and it talks about things like you've got 10 days to get in touch with the tenant and arrange to visit a property, that within that you've got another 5 days to start carrying out works. So it is very strict on the AWAB's law, is very strict as it stands at the moment for England, with timescales that people have to operate in, and it'll be interesting to see what the Scottish Government take from that, and how that how that's going to look like for us that are operating in the sector, for you as landlords, and what you're going to have to do. Why are we doing all of this? Well, it's part of the Scottish Government's wider effort to raise standards in our housing sector. We know that our housing sector in Scotland, our stock is of poor condition. We've got so many pre-1919 tenements. We have got stock that's just not been maintained by owners and professionals within the sector. And we're chasing our tail to a certain extent in terms of getting our buildings in good condition. As a result of that, we have got lots of issues with damp and mould that do affect people's health and well-being, as well as contribute to the deterioration of our housing stock. And obviously, we've got our housing emergencies that have been declared in lots of local authorities across Scotland in the last year or so. So we need to raise the standard in our housing sector, and the Scottish Government is doing that via the Housing Scotland Act 2025, using the tolerable standard and introducing AWAB's law. So, what can you do now, as a landlord to try and get ahead of this? The devil's obviously going to be in the detail, as it is with everything in life, and we don't know that right now. We don't know how this is going to be enforced. We just don't have that information, but that doesn't mean that we can just sit back and think, well, let's just wait and see what happens. We know that across our housing stock in Scotland, there are lots of different issues with damp and mould. We need to be proactive as a group, as landlords, as professionals in the sector, as to how we can help eradicate that. So what can you do now? Well, you can carry out a property visit. That's the number one thing that I would urge you all to do here today as a landlord, whether you're working with a letting agency or not. If it's been a minute since you've been in one of your properties, then arrange a visit. You've got authorised purposes for access to a rental property under the PRT tenancy agreement. So your authorised purposes for access are to carry out a property visit, to carry out repairs, or to carry out a valuation survey in accordance with the repairing standard. It's really important that you check your compliance with the repairing standard, which includes the tolerable standard. So if you've not been in your property for a while, you've not had a lot of communication from your letting agent, perhaps you're aware that there's been ongoing issues with damp and mould in one of your rental properties or across several of your rental properties, then arrange to go and have a look at it yourself and know what you're dealing with. You want to start to take action when you receive complaints about damp and mould from tenants or via your letting agent. What would that look like? So that would look like you arranging a visit to the property. It would be you documenting that in a written record of, we were contacted on X date by this person, with a copy of that communication. If it was electronic, they complained about this. We set a visit date for this date. Here are photographs of what we found when we visited. Here's a record of the work that we undertook. It might be if there's obvious black mold spots that you can see, you might want to clean that off with a hot soapy water solution. You might want to use one of the mold and mildew remover sprays such as Dettol or Astonish, and clean that, and then take a photograph of the area afterwards, or the areas afterwards, to see if there's any difference. And you would obviously from there then arrange a follow-up with the tenant to go back and review it within a time period. If you're working with a letting agent, check their policies and procedures and your terms of business agreement. What are they actually saying, your letting agent? What are they saying that they're going to do in terms of property visits? How often are they going out? What are they doing when they identify repairs that are required from a property visit? How's your communication been with your letting agent? Have you received information from them? Have you got copies of inspection reports? Are you in touch with your tenant yourself if you're self-managing the property? How often do you go and visit? Do you just go in and have a wee look round and leave it at that? Or, have you got a form or something that you complete or something online? And have you got, have you got a record of that? Are you keeping records of that along with a photographic account of what you found in the property, particularly if there are issues with damp and mould? You want to check the effectiveness of the heating and insulation installations within your property. You might be thinking, look, this heating system's probably coming to the end of its life cycle. We want to consider a new system. We're not sure what to do. We are not sure if there's insulation in our property. We're not sure, if the roof is if there's insulation there. Do we need to install that? It's important that you know that as a flat owner within a tenement building, however that is, whether it's a traditional tenement building, a modern flat development, or flats above shops, 4 in a block properties, whatever, anything that's considered a tenement under the legal definition, and the installation of insulation is a maintenance obligation on owners, meaning that it's not just an individual cost to you as a landlord to insulate to install insulation for the benefit of your property. That is something that can be dealt with as a common repair, and it's specified within the Tenements Act. So if you're not sure if your property's got insulation, you're concerned about that, or you are in the process or thinking about installing insulation to help with damp and mold in a property, then speak to Home Energy Scotland about what support that they can offer you. They've got a whole host of measures that they can offer you, support that they can offer you. They can have people come out to your property to carry out a survey. They can let you know about grants and funding that's available to landlords for different types of heating installations. So have a chat with them if you're thinking about, my heating system is not that effective. It's been there for a long time. I want to explore what my options are. So speak to Home Energy Scotland. Make sure that your heating systems are regularly serviced and radiators are being bled. Make sure that your tenants have got a key to bleed radiators and instructions on how to do this. Why are we bleeding radiators? Well, we don't want radiators to not be able to operate fully and effectively. We want, when the heating goes on, we want the full radiator to heat up and to be at optimum performance. If it's clogged up, then and it's not bled, then the radiator may not come on fully, or it may not come on at all. So make sure that the tenants know what to do in those circumstances. Or it might be that when you go round, when you're checking your compliance with the repairing standard and doing that visit, that you take a key with you to bleed the radiators, and you just say to the tenants, make sure that the heating's off when I come round so that I can bleed the radiators even. Provide tenants with a copy of any safety check certificates and service paperwork that you've got. Even if your letting agent is carrying that out, make sure that you know that your letting agent is giving the tenants a copy of it, as well as yourselves. Just so that people know that all the safety checks are up to date for the property. Have a look at the ventilation within your property. Make sure that all your windows open properly. We talk a lot about, or it's not we as an under one roof, I guess, but just we as an industry. When we talk about damp and mold, it's often spoken about tenants' lifestyles, the way that they live with drying washing inside, putting wet washing over radiators, not using extractor fans when they're boiling potatoes, pasta, any type of cooking where you're going to have humid air. It might be, that people are not heating all of the property, or it's only one room, they're closing the doors, and it's the old thing of, well, you've got issues with damp and mold, turn the heating on low and open up all the windows. Um, we I guess as an industry, we have to start moving away from just solely putting this at the feet of the tenants and lifestyle issues. We know that that can contribute, but we also know that there are a lot of issues going on with the fabric of the building that are contributing to damp and mold, and making sure that the building and your property are ventilated is super important. So do all your windows open properly. If it's are the window handles intact? If it's sash and case windows, are the ropes still intact? Excuse me a second. Do all the windows that have vents on them, do the vents actually open? And if they do open, is the vent itself free from debris? They can get clogged up quite easily. So it's a good idea when you go around for a visit, check all the windows, check that the vents open, free anything, any vents that are stuck, if you can do that without the need for a contractor, and that you've got something there to be able to clean the vents as well to make sure that there's optimum ventilation there. Make sure that extractor fans that are in kitchens and bathrooms that work and that they're properly connected. We obviously have to recognise that where we've got cooker hoods with a carbon filter, that carbon filter is just absorbing the smells from cooking. It's not necessarily taking that hot, humid air and extracting it out externally. So we want to, make sure that kitchen windows are openable. If we've not got mechanical extraction in a kitchen, where we've got bathrooms, internal bathrooms that don't have windows, we need to make sure that extractor fans are working and that they're actually connected up to a duct that's taking that hot, humid air and it's extracting it externally, that it's not just circulating it in the void space between the ceiling of your property and the floor of the flat above. So have a look and see what you can see, and if there's any remedial work that needs to be carried out to ventilate in your property, then get on the case with that and be proactive about it. Excuse me. What else can you do now? You can get to know the condition of your building. It's really important. When you've got issues with a roof that's not maintained, with gutters that are not maintained, with downpipes that are not maintained, with stonework that's in poor condition, you need to know what's happening with the building. You need to check the repair history for the building, and that might mean that you look back your own records if you've owned it for a very long time, you speak to other owners in the building, or you speak to the property factor if you've got one. You might have specific issues that are happening that are affecting the condition of the building that are causing damp and mould. And you might want to speak to environmental health at the council to see what support that they can offer you, as well as speaking to the other owners in the building and figuring out if, what work that you can do together to, to bring the building up to a good maintained standard. And, do you have to organise a professional building survey if you've not had one for 5 or more years, and you want to get ahead and, you're aware that there are some pressing issues, have a professional building survey carried out. Obviously, it's not cheap to get an RICS accredited surveyor to do that. And in your area, we don't have a blanket cost for what it costs to do a building survey. It's always wise to check from a few surveyors in the area and what they're charging for it. And you would obviously split that amongst you, the cost amongst you all as owners per what your title deeds state. But it's a really good idea to get that report from a building surveyor as to the condition of your building so that you can start to move forward and be proactive about setting up a planned maintenance schedule and dealing with things that are urgent. So what are our top tips for tenement owners when it comes to just generally being an owner and being a landlord in a property, whether you've got issues with damp and mold or not? We want you to know who all of the owners are in a building. So get to know the owners. Make an effort to find out who they are, get their contact details, and make sure that that's circulated amongst all owners so they know how to get in touch with you, particularly as landlords. And if you're working with a letting agent and you want the communication to go through the letting agent, then make sure that people know how they get in touch with you. You know, it we're not anonymous. We've got to work together with owners. And as we move forward with this legislative update and AWAB's law coming into effect in Scotland, a lot of the issues that we're going to see or that we have seen in properties and that we're going to see in properties are not just all attributed to tenants' lifestyles. We know that our housing stock is in poor condition in Scotland. We know that that is contributing to water ingress, which in turn is going to create damp and mold is going to develop, and we need to be able to move forward to start repair work. So the first step for that is knowing who the other owners are and being in touch with each other. If you don't already have an owners association for your building, whether you're in regular contact or not, whether you have a factor or not, it is worthwhile giving consideration to setting up an owners association. Rebecca will put a link in the chat box to our page on setting up an owners association, and it's also part of the Scottish Government's plans. It was announced last week that owners associations are going to become mandatory in Scotland, so it's a good idea to consider that and get ahead of the curve now. We spoke about insurance earlier on in the presentation, so make sure when you're getting a list of all the owners' names and contact details, ask them about insurance and to provide a copy of that. If as a group of owners, if you're thinking, wow, the valuation that's listed on the insurance policy sounds really low. It's been 5 or more years that you've owned a property and you don't know the last time that an insurance reinstatement valuation survey was carried out. You may want to give consideration to that so that you know that if there is any type of catastrophic incident, that you've got insurance at the right level to cover the reinstatement of the building. We've talked about a professional building survey and how important that is, particularly if you do have issues with damp and mold in your property, or you're currently sitting with something in your email inbox, or it might be that you've got a WhatsApp or a text message from somebody in the building saying, our tenant's got mold, we think, that there's a leak on the roof or there's something else going on. You're aware that there's potentially an issue there. You need to know what's happening with your building. When you go to carry out a property visit at your flat, have a wee look at the common areas as well. Have a look outside, look up at the building. How is it looking? What's growing out the gutters, if anything? Are there any signs that anything's missing from the roof? How are the downpipes looking? Just take a couple of photos maybe, and just get an idea of what's actually happening externally that's visible to the naked eye. If you're not already doing it, then speak to the owners about having the gutters cleaned out annually and also getting your roof checked. From there, you want to ideally prepare a planned maintenance schedule so that okay, right, in September every year, we're going to have somebody come round and clean out the gutters, and we'll get them back in April time. This is when we'll schedule a roof check. This is when somebody comes, every week to clean the stairs. Might be you've got external window cleaners, or you've got a gardener that's on a schedule. Whatever it might be, start to put together a planned maintenance schedule so that all owners are aware of what's going on. Ideally, you want to start saving for future repairs and consider opening a joint maintenance account for your building. The days of everybody just paying their their subs or for a specific piece of work into one owner's bank account are really starting to go now. And, we're looking at having proper maintenance accounts set up. So have a think about that and how that would look for your building. And if your building is factored, make sure that you are working closely with the factor, that you know when they're carrying out a site visit to the building or the development. Are you meeting with them on a regular basis? Do you know what their written statement of services agreement states about how they will manage the common areas of the building, and how they'll respond to repairs and emergency situations? Why is that important as a landlord to know that? Well, if there is an issue that affects the fabric of the building, that can cause damp and mold growth into your property, then you need to know how the factor is going to deal with that. You need to be aware of the timescales. You need to make sure that once we get more detail on how AWAB's law in Scotland is going to look for the private sector, that all of that marries up, and that you're not leaving yourself exposed by not not dealing with something within a specific time frame. If you're here today and you're thinking, Jacqueline, yeah, I've got a building, I've lost track of who all the owners are, I've owned it for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. We always have difficulties with organising common repairs. Hardly anything ever gets done. You know, it's a tale as old as time, and we hear it every day under one roof. I think sometimes for people in that situation, it's genuinely the realization that you're in a self-factored building, and that nobody is coming in on, or riding in. There's no white knight riding in on the horse to resolve everything for you as owners, and that you can pay that up. It's the owners that are responsible for it. So I'll get Rebecca to post a link to our article on self-factoring, just so that you can have a look at that if you are in a self-factored building and really understand what that means and what your responsibilities are. How can we help you under one roof? Our website contains hundreds of informative articles on all aspects of tenement management and maintenance and retrofit. Our website came from the original tenement handbook that was written by our founders, John Gilbert and Annie Flint, in the mid-90s, and it's been updated as things have changed in the kind of legislative and regulatory framework. But we've got lots and lots of architect drawings that John Gilbert did that are on our website, that really break down the technical aspects of repairs to roofs, to gutters. There's so many pages on gutters with different types of gutters that you can have. We talk, we've got extensive information on drain pipes, about what's happening below ground level, about wet rot, dry rot, etc. Anything that could be causing issues where damp and mold can develop in a property. We are guaranteed to have some kind of article on it, and be able to steer you in the right direction. Similarly, we've got an inquiry service that's really popular. We answer on average around 150 inquiries a month from owners, landlords, professionals and tenants across Scotland. So when you go onto the website, on the homepage, you'll see the button to ask an expert. You can press that and put in all of your details, and it'll come to me or my colleague Stephen, and we'll have a look at it and come back to you with an answer. Before I stop sharing my screen, I'm just going to remind you that the recording and the slide deck will be sent out to you all today, so you'll have a note of my email address if you want to get in touch with me directly, and once you've had a chance to listen and kind of digest things, maybe go round to your flat and have a wee look at it, and come back to me and let me know what questions you've got, or what specific issues are going on that you need some assistance with. But I'll leave it there for the moment for the presentation. Rebecca and Ailey will join us back on screen, and we will go into the to the Q&A. Rebecca, I'll let you take over.
Absolutely, thank you. So we've got our first question. We've got 3 in the Q&A at the moment.
Okay.
Question 1 is from Louise, She asks, does a cooker hood have to be provided / vented to the outside, or is a close by window in a kitchen sufficient?
I think as long as you've got something that's that allows for ventilation in your kitchen, then that should be that should be acceptable. Um Obviously, if it's a cooker hood that's just got a carbon filter in it, then that's not designed to be vented externally. But if you've got, like a kind of modern chimney style cooker hood or one of the glass ones, something like that. If it's not vented outside, as long as you've got something else there, and whether that's another fan on the ceiling, or you've got a window in the room that is openable, then yes, I would think that would be that would be sufficient. Yeah. Oh, Rebecca, you're on mute. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
That's all right.
That's a great answer, thank you. Our next question is from Ian, and with regards to the timelines that are currently in place for AWAB's law in England and that will likely come to Scotland, how are we expected to meet these standards when you can't get tradesmen? 5 days between assessment and starting repairs is an unachievable standard.
Yeah, Ian, I absolutely sympathise with you on that. And before we kind of came online to the webinar today, the three of us were just chatting about that. And the challenges that people are going to have throughout Scotland, and trying to get contractors and tradesmen to respond within the timeframes. It is absolutely a challenge, and I can't say what the Scottish government already know about that, or what their plans are to deal with it. But obviously, within the sector, however you're coming at this as a landlord, or as a professional working in the sector, we all know that in the kind of the post-Brexit, post-COVID, cost of living environment that we're in, it is so difficult to get good tradesmen and contractors these days, and the ones that are still operating are fully booked, and it is a real challenge. And it will be interesting to see how the detail of that is laid out. I would expect in the letting agent code of practice, the onus is upon letting agents for them to let their contractors or who are on their preferred list to know about what the code of practice states about timescales, etc. For carrying out repairs. So I wonder if there'll be an update along those lines. I don't know exactly how that will look like for private landlords, but I think that in terms of you keeping a record of everything, and being able to demonstrate all the steps that you've taken to get somebody to look at an issue is the best that you can do in the current situation until we've got more detail.
That is very helpful, thank you. We've got another question from Barbara regarding 5-year building surveys. Does the home report on purchase constitute a good baseline, or is this of no use with regards to the valuation of the actual property condition? Like, how useful are home reports?
Barbara, home reports are great for valuations. And if the seller has been transparent in completing the property questionnaire, and has done that diligently. In terms of the condition of the building, I would never recommend that anybody goes by the home report. More often than not, you'll see in home reports, when you read through it, when it talks about the condition of, like, the roof, etc. It will mark it potentially as a 1 or a 2, with a caveat saying that the surveyor wasn't able to access the area, and it was a visual inspection that was completed from the ground. any of us, all of us will know that if you're standing on the ground looking up at a building, unless it's really glaringly obvious that there's a big hole in the roof or it's missing completely through storm damage, or you might see that the odd tile has come out, the home report isn't going to be. I would not recommend that anybody takes great comfort in what a home report states. I would always advocate for having an RICS accredited building surveyor or an architect carry out a building survey report for you. They will do normally that's like a photo. It's they'll get up onto the roof and there'll be some kind of photographic survey carried out. They might use a drone, and you'll get a full report on the condition with photographic examples of exactly what you're looking at, and specification of works that are required, and a kind of the report on a traffic light based system. So anything in red will be urgent, and it'll let you know what you have to plan for in the immediate future, and things that that are going to come to the end of their lifespan, and the next could be like 5-10 years that you need to consider. So I really would encourage everybody to consider having a building survey carried out, dependent on the age of your property and how long you've owned it for, if you don't have anything at all.
Great, thank you. That is very helpful. And we've got a final question from Andy, which is, are you anticipating a lot of housing disrepair claims against landlords similar to what's happening in England and Wales currently?
I would say so, Andy. This is all likely. I mean, I can't say for definite, but based on my experience, I would say that this is all likely to end up going through the Housing and Property Chamber First Tier Tribunal, and where we know that. If we think about the tolerable standard, and we know that that states properties have got to be free from rising and penetrating damp, and we know that what it states in the Act about damp and mould and how that is fed into the tolerable standard, which is overall part of the repairing standard, then that is dealt with through the first tier tribunal. So yes, where properties don't meet the standard, then tenants are going to make complaints to the first tier tribunal, or make applications with complaints about it, and the tribunal are likely to be the ones that are going to deal with this. And I think that we will definitely see an increase in applications, because damp and mould is such a topical issue throughout Scotland. In whatever kind of type of property it is, there's so many examples of people that are experiencing issues. So yes, I think that there will be there'll be a lot more applications through the first tier tribunal.
Yeah, sorry, just to add, we found about a year or two ago, when our story was in the press quite a bit, we saw an increase in complaints coming through to us at the council.
Yeah.
So I think when more of this comes, more of the guidance and that comes out and becomes available, then there possibly will be, and then obviously that will result in a higher number of tribunal applications.
Yeah. Okay.
Our final question, sort of following on from that, is from Kenny, who asks, how can a landlord of a well-maintained property address mould which results from tenants not properly heating or ventilating a property, drying clothes over radiators, not opening windows, not using a dehumidifier, etc.?
Okay, it's a difficult one, Kenny. It's not that's not an easy situation to be in, and I guess it's about how you can demonstrate as a landlord that you have provided your tenant with enough information and guides as to what they need to do to try and eradicate the mold growth within the property that's attributed to their lifestyle issues. What you have done as a landlord to make sure that everything that is there for ventilation purposes is in proper working order, and that you've taken into account the tenant specific circumstances. If there's anybody there that's elderly, if they've got a disability, or they've got underlying health issues, they've got children there, that you can demonstrate that you've done everything that you absolutely can to assist them on how to eradicate the mold growth. Ultimately, you know, if they are, you've done absolutely everything that you can, and your property has fallen into a state of disrepair, as to the tenants inaction, to follow anything that you've offered to them, then you might want to consider whether they're the right tenants for the property. You might want to look for any additional support that the local authority could offer you, and how to you know, help the tenants to manage things. You want to go there on a regular basis to make sure that, you know, mold growth is being cleaned off, and it may be that that's what is included within AWAB's law in Scotland, that you know, the landlord has got to physically be there, or their representative letting agent has got to be there within a certain time frame to clean that off. So yeah, it's not an easy situation. Ailey, I don't know if you've got any other recommendations to that.
Yeah, well, it is a tricky one that we get quite a bit. But ultimately, as long as you're keeping records of everything that you've given to your tenant and any action that you've taken to date, sorry, in terms of, and making sure that your, you know, your heating system's working properly, the extractor fans are working. If your tenant then was to go to the tribunal, you would have evidence to show everything you've done up until that point. But I don't know, you know, I've seen some articles in Landlord Focus about the air quality meters that you can put in properties, you know, the little
Yeah,
wee devices to monitor the
yeah,
air quality. I'm
yeah.
not sure if you guys under one roof have any experience of that. Or...
Not necessarily under one roof, but I personally do. We live in a new build property, and we've got one, and we've got one in our bedroom that the house builder put in for us. But I don't know. I don't really know enough about it. I guess I can only just say from a personal point of view that I don't really like it, because I mean, I've always got windows open, and the vents are always open. But say for example, it's in our bedroom. If I've got the blind down and the curtains closed, the windows shut, but the vents open, it'll immediately go to red and say that there's no airflow in the room. And I'm not sure. I wouldn't comment professionally on that. I would just comment personally on it to say that, yeah, I'm not, I
Well,
don't
that's
necessarily,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I know. It's a difficult one. I mean, I guess. I mean, in my previous life, before I came to Under One Roof, I was a letting agent for like 20 years. So I've seen lots of issues where tenants haven't lived in property, or where tenants have been living in properties and not, you know, they've not made use of what's available to heat and to ventilate the properties, and the difficulties that can create. Um, yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, on that note, I hope that we've given people some decent information today, without having the exact detail from the government. It is difficult to know how they're going to take this forward. But as I say, the purpose of the event today was to start to give you information about damp and mold, to let you know what you can get started doing right now, and you know how you can, you know, try and help things before they develop any further within the property, and cause issues, and how you can deal with fabric building repairs, because 9 times out of 10 that's a big contributor to damp and mold happening inside properties. Am I just seeing somebody else have just put another question in there? I don't know if
Yes,
it's in the chat.
it's in there's a couple in the chat.
Right.
First one is, does Under One Roof or Aberdeen City Council have leaflets/pamphlets with guidance for tenants and landlords?
Um, You guys have got you guys at Aberdeenshire have got you've got leaflets, Ailey, is that right?
We've got leaflets on our website under the
Right.
private housing, and then it would be under the section for landlords.
Okay, great, perfect.
I'll find a link for that and send it out with the recording and things. So
yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, great. And as Jonathan saying, is it a landlord's responsibility to clear black mold arising from the way in which a tenant lives in a property? Potentially, yes, Jonathan. If it's been reported that there's damp and mold within the property, you're going round to have a look at that. Then one of the first things that may well be required is the removal of that. And you as a landlord, that's the onus may well be upon you or your agent to do that on your behalf. So yeah, it's something that you will need to consider. I know people are going to be thinking, hey, I've not got time, Jacqueline, to go around like all like 30 flats in my portfolio or even go to one. Will it bleach or like a mold and mildew remover spray and do that. If the tenant's caused it, it's up to them to clean it. But you need to demonstrate that where you have been informed about it and that you've gone round to have a look at it, you've got a written record of it, you've got photographs of it, and show the action that you've taken to remove it. When you go back to review it and see if has that eradicated the issue, or is it still ongoing and you need to look at do a kind of a further deep dive onto what the exact source is, and because it may be that it's not just topical, that there's something else going on. Yeah.
thank you. I think that is everything from the
Great.
chat and from the Q&A.
Lovely. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll let you get on with the rest of your day. Please keep in touch with us and let us know if any questions or thoughts come up as you start to review everything as you go to your properties, and we'll do our best to help you. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.